Let's jump in. Everybody put your swimmies on. Here we go into the deep end.
Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
So, what attracted you to podcasting, and what attracted you to the topic that you have chosen the podcast about?
Can I start?
Yeah, feel free.
Okay. What attracted me, number one, to answer your first question, what attracted me to podcasting to begin with was how inspired I found myself by listening to podcasts and all of the different voices and experiences that I was not able to have access to in other places. I myself really enjoy learning through listening faster than I love to sit down and read a book. Although I do read, it is much easier for me to pop a podcast into my ear while I'm doing all of the things rather than sitting down to enjoy and learn from a book. So I wanted to offer that opportunity for other people to hear, like I said, other voices, other stories that they may otherwise not have the ability to have access to. For my audience, really, I wanted to open up the conversation about burnout because I felt like it wasn't being talked about in a way that was shedding light on the opportunity to learn and to hear other people's stories and have that ability to connect and not feel isolated and alone, which is definitely a symptom of burnout, feeling like you're isolated and alone and like you're the only one struggling with that. So I thought offering an opportunity to share these voices of teachers who had struggled, like I said earlier, would open up the conversation and change the conversation from burnout being something that's negative to something that is beatable, and that, hashtag better together. The more people that you surround yourself with that can relate to you, the more successful that you're going to be.
I'll jump in. So for me, I started listening to podcasting because I kind of wanted to start a side hustle as a business, and I knew nothing about starting a business. So I researched it, and what I loved about listening to these podcasts, like Amber said, I didn't have time to read, like business books, but I could listen to a lot of business podcasts like Pat Flynn or Amy Porterfield, and I just binged so many episodes. And then I realized that there were also teacher podcasts out there, of course. And then I started listening to Jennifer Gonzalez and Angela Watson and a lot of other educational podcasts. And that, to me, just having them like they're talking to me, I really loved it. And I got really addicted. And I would listen to it when I'm getting ready in the morning, when I'm washing the dishes, on my drive to work. And it was just so convenient, and it was more interesting to me than an audiobook. And so then I started to podcast as well, like I mentioned before, because I wanted to provide this pocket PD basically for new teachers, because just blogging wasn't reaching a wide enough audience, and I felt like I could help a lot more people through podcasts. Now, there has been some education on my part with convincing people to listen to a podcast. I've heard people say, "Oh, no, I don't do the podcast thing," and I'll say, "Oh, really? Why not? Here, listen to this one," and I'll play something entertaining like Joe Rogan, and then they'll be like, "Oh, okay," and I'll show them how to search for a podcast, and then I can help them get hooked too.
I love everything you just said there at the end about helping people listen and show them, and that's great. Everybody needs to do that. Commit to doing that today.
That's awesome. When I started thinking about starting a podcast, or I guess I should backtrack. I was teaching, and my commute was about an hour and 15 minutes each way. So I originally listened to podcasts just, because I was listening to things while I was driving to work and back to work, to school and back. And most of my podcast listening is politics podcasts. I listen to, Vox podcast, The Weeds, and 538 Politics podcast, and I'm a policy junkie a little bit, so I listen to a lot of that stuff. I used to listen to a lot of video game podcasts, but not so much, anymore. I'm definitely consumed by politics and policy podcasts at the moment, other than Hardcore History, Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, which is a very popular history podcast. I tend to listen to that, but he doesn't really, as a weird model, he releases a podcast every 6 months, and he's still one of the most listened to podcasts in the world. I don't really get it, but it works for him. the reason why we started on education, I think we're still kind of true to form. I wanted to talk about things that not a lot of people seem to be talking about. I do go to a lot of conferences, and you don't hear a lot of people talking about equity and school funding, and how one school in one neighborhood has tons of money, and the school a couple blocks down that's in a predominantly Black neighborhood has no money, and how that's just absolutely freaking ridiculous. And so we've had think tank people on that are experts on school funding come in and actually break that down for us, because there is tons of research about it, but it seems like politicians are talking about it, and think tank people are talking about it, and policy people aren't talking about it, but educators aren't talking about this. I don't know why. I don't know what we're afraid of, but there's a lot of tough conversations that need to happen in education that just don't seem to be happening as much as they should. And I'm just not afraid. I've lost all. I care not about the backlash. So we talk about these things, and the reaction's been overwhelming. The podcast is doing incredibly well, so I'm just going to stick with it.
And I'll finish us up if you don't mind. So I started listening to podcasts on my way to pick up my daughter from daycare and drop her off, and on my way to school and all that stuff. And it was professional development on my own time. I can pick and choose what I wanted to listen to, skip ahead if I wasn't jiving with it, and just keep going along there. I loved people's enthusiasm and excitement for education. It's a different type of vibe that you get on Twitter and Instagram and podcasting as well. I think podcasting is more intimate, and you get that person in your earbuds, you get them playing on the radio, and it's like they're sitting there right beside you. And I was able to bring in these ideas and these strategies and these tools to my pre-service teachers. I don't know how many times I said, I heard this on a podcast, or whatever it might be. And, just be able to bring that type of professional development to them in a way that they can enjoy and, get to on their way to their next class. So just encouraging them to listen to podcasts as well, and sharing that out there. It actually became an assignment to listen to a podcast and just share what you thought about it. And it can be anywhere from like a 10-minute episode all the way up to however long you'd like to go. And it just got them thinking about professional development in a new way, professional development that they can control, and they can find things that are going to speak to them and feed their teacher souls. And the reason I started mine was because pre-service teachers, sometimes they feel that they don't have a lot of value to offer the world of education because they don't have those years of experience. And yes, they might not have all that, 5 days, 5 years, 5 weeks of experience, but they do have value for the education world. And they have ideas and tools and strategies and techniques that they can share and, be proud of that. So I just wanted them to have a space that they can do that, and they can just feel like, just like everybody else, is that they're not alone and that they are supported. So that's why I started mine. And I love me some Amy Porterfield in the morning, Kim. I am so up on that. She is fantastic.
Me too.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Well, I started podcasting to honestly raise my profile for consulting purposes, to create content. And then I got bored of talking about what I was talking about. And I was like, it's time to pivot. And then I went all in on what I talk about now, which is about, educators monetizing their talents and creating multiple streams of income. And I was just attracted to it because, I didn't become an educator to become wealthy, but I didn't become one to be broke either. And so for me, it was, man, I can't just rely on this district, these tens of thousands of dollars every year. I got to go out there and use the genius that I have, the experience I have, to make that impact and an income. And so that's when I started, doing what I am right now.